morning to many, and thank you to everyone for joining us today for this food and seed sovereignty panel. We are so honored to welcome our esteemed panelists who are joining us from around the world to share their rich stories and perspectives as practitioners and scholars engaged with the politics and practices of food and seed sovereignty. Before we begin, we acknowledge that the fourth annual Post-Capitalism Conference is located on the present and ancestral homeland and unceded territory of the Wiyot tribe. These lands are in relation with the tribes and nations in Northern California, including the Hupa, Karuk, Matole, Tolowa, Wailaki, and Yurok. We would also like to acknowledge the Native and Indigenous lands to which our panelists belong and the shared practices of food and seed sovereignty that connect our lands, peoples, and more than human peoples. This evening, we will hear a short presentation from each of our panelists, during which they will share about their current works and projects. And then following these presentations, we will gather with our panelists for a discussion around the decolonizing strategies, practices, and ways of thinking and being that are emerging from the diverse biocultural and political contexts of their food systems. During those presentations and during our discussion, please feel free to write any questions you have in the Q&A box, and we'll keep track of those questions and share them during the Q&A session at the end. Unfortunately, today we will miss the presence and participation of two panelists originally scheduled for the discussion, as they have expressed their support and respect for the panel and panelists involved. So we honor the work and support of Rowan White, a seed keeper, farmer, and author from the Mohawk community, the creative director of Sierra Seeds, which is an innovative Indigenous seed bank and land-based educational organization located in North San Juan, California. White is also the founder of this cooperative seed and the Cooperative Seed Hub coordinator with the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network, which is an organization committed to restoring the Indigenous seed commons. White's work weaves stories of seed, food, culture, and sacred earth stewardship on her blog, Seed Songs, and many other distinguished publications. We would also like to acknowledge the support from Marlena Dusek, the Rue Gallagher Food Sovereignty Lab and Traditional Ecological Knowledge Institute Program Director, and a Native American Studies professor at Cal Poly Humboldt. Marlena is a seed saver, gardener, singer, traditional foods and medicines gatherer, harvester, artist, dancer, daughter, and plant nerd. In addition to her work with the Food Sovereignty Lab, she sustains herself and family through relationships with traditional foods and plant medicines. As a cultural burner, Marlena is committed to protecting all relatives and Mother Earth from the harms of this colonial world and burning down those systems. So in acknowledgement of the panelists that we will be missing today, I'm delighted to introduce our first panelist, Carly Rojas. Carly Rojas is a research associate with the Rue Gallagher Food Sovereignty Lab and Traditional Ecological Knowledge Institute at Cal Poly Humboldt. They engage with traditional ecological knowledge as applied to local food systems, relating to Western knowledge and the discipline of agroecology. And Carly, I'll turn it to you.
Takaji, Takanulia Carly Rojas, Taktoka, Taino descendiente, Taktoka Oria Morong Alukamawe, Cuba. Good evening. My name is Carly Rojas. I am a Taino descendant person from Morong, Cuba. I am a guest in this place on the lands of the Wiyot and the Hupa tribal peoples, and I currently serve as the research associate for the Rue Gallagher Food Sovereignty Lab and Traditional Ecological Knowledge Institute under the Native American Studies Department at Cal Poly Humboldt. My areas of study include Indigenous ethnobotany and agroecology. Aubrey, should I commence with my presentation or will we introduce other panelists first?
Oh, if you could please commence with your presentation, Carly. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Wonderful. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a short presentation prepared. Okay. So this is a very quick abbreviated presentation of the Root Alligator Food Sovereignty Lab, the institute that I am representing today. This presentation is normally about an hour and a half, so we've cut it down a lot. There's a lot of information I would encourage y'all to look into, and a place you can do that, a resource, is our recent biannual report, which you can find following the QR code here or on the Native American Studies website at Cal Poly Humboldt. So as acknowledged by our wonderful panelist, our wonderful moderator, Aubrey, we are guests on We at Land at Cal Poly Humboldt. There's a wonderful place names video I would encourage folks that are on We at Land to engage with, which introduces you to the indigenous names, the Wiyot names for these places on the lands that we are occupying. I would also encourage action items associated with the acknowledgement of the fact that we are on Wiyot land. So that includes paying the Wiyot honor tax or donating directly to the Root Alligator Food Sovereignty Lab and Traditional Ecological Knowledge Institute. And both of those links can also be found on our Native American Studies website. And for more information about land acknowledgements in general and why land acknowledgements are insufficient without action, I would encourage y'all to engage with the lecture by Dr. Kutcha Risling-Baldi, What Good is a Land Acknowledgement, which can be found on our our Native American Studies YouTube page. Oh, now it's working. Okay. Sorry, I chose too bougie of a presentation format. Okay, so an introduction to myself. I'm from Cuba and I wanted to show you where that is. I think place is very important. So I'm from a place called Morón, and my abuelos' ancestral lands are in Punta Alegre, both of which these places are in Camagüey. My abuelo was a fisher person and he self-identified as an Indio. So this is very much in keeping with our traditions as Taino people, as people of the ocean. And my abuela came from a family of Guajiros who are indigenous mixed land caregivers. She was a seamstress and she sewed all of our clothes growing up, and grounding in this discussion of seed and food sovereignty. I know that when she left Cuba, when we migrated here, she sewed seeds into our clothes to carry them to this land with us. And I still have a bichu that I care for that comes from home. So I wanted to underline some of the most significant foods to me and my people before grounding in the work of the Food Sovereignty Lab. So this is a very small selection of what is a very wide range of foods that are important to us, of course. But we are a yuca, pictured here is yucawa, which is the root, and a maíz people. So we are people of the corn and people of yuca. I would also like to highlight bichu and wawao, which is also known as ají, or pepper. These are some of the seeds that my family has been in relationship with since time immemorial. And I just wanted to highlight these relatives and grounding in the seed sovereignty work that is from my community. So moving to the Food Sovereignty Lab and the organization that I am a representative of here, I wanted to highlight some of our projects and an initial introduction into what the Food Sovereignty Lab is and what we do. So in 2019, a Native American Studies class went to community and directly asked, what can we build, what can we create within the institution to serve community? And what came out of it was the Food Sovereignty Lab, which is a physical space dedicated to the learning, research, and hands-on practice and preservation of food sovereignty and traditional ecological knowledges. The purpose is to provide an opportunity to work directly with surrounding communities, tribal nations, and national and international scholars to Center, learn, and engage with Indigenous science, environmental management, and preservation practices. The lab is dedicated to building national and international connections that foreground Indigenous voices in rigorous academic research, publications, and community-centered programming, connecting youth to higher education, policy development, economic development, and climate resiliency. We are driven by a steering committee, which has representatives from all of the regional tribal nations, as well as tribal affiliated organizations and professors and academics from the region. So a view into our physical space, we also have many programs that are outside of this physical space. But in 2019, this commenced a project to raise money to build a physical lab. And this will include a commercial kitchen, plant drying racks, plant processing areas, community gathering spaces, a generational seed bank, and really a space for community to engage with food sovereignty, a space that is open to our community and accessible. And this is a representation of Indigenous spaces on this campus that continues the acts of resistance and indigenization of spaces that has been actions that have been over generations, right? So I'm thinking of programs at Cal Poly Humboldt that have been created by the regional Indigenous community that have served our Indigenous students, our student body, over generations of time. And this is a current iteration of that indigenization of space. So we fundraised over $250,000 by the end of 2020 to create this interior space. And I would also like to highlight that this Institute is not programmatically funded by the university. This is entirely a community-funded, grant-funded, student-driven project. Okay. And we are currently looking at fundraising $50,000 to continue the building of this interior space, which is slotted to open in the fall of 2023. So again, you can donate at our website if you're interested. Okay. I would also like to ground our work in our exterior space. So when the Food Sovereignty Lab was conceived, it was always conceived of having an interior commercial kitchen space, but also an exterior space to engage with landscapes and engagement with food sovereignty and traditional ecological knowledges and sciences. So through a very long process, we were able to put Wiyot Plaza under the care of the Food Sovereignty Lab and our community. So this is a space on campus, and it outlines what Wiyot Plaza is and some of the spaces of focus that we are working to develop within this space. And this is a draft by a local Indigenous artist conceptualizing of those spaces. I would note that the salmon cooking area and the acorn processing area will be switched. But this includes an Indigenous garden, a native plant landscape, acorn processing areas, and a traditional cooking pit. I would also like to highlight for students or for people that are local to this Humboldt, so-called Northern California region, we do have volunteer days. And this is a way that students and community members can give back directly to our community and to food sovereignty initiatives that are going on in the region. So if you have the capacity, I would highly encourage you to get involved with this, and links to sign up to our volunteer program can be found on our Native American Studies website. And very quickly, I will also highlight some of the programs, and this is really just a small handful. We're growing very rapidly, but for students as well as community members, they can sign up for a single unit Food Sovereignty Lab course, which is taught every winter, every fall and spring semester, which is taught by my colleague, Marlena Dusek. And it's a really wonderful class. I know it's changed the perspectives of many students. We also offer an internship program for students to engage in projects that directly serve the tribal community. One of our current projects, this is also under the purview of Marlena, is the Food Boxes for the Wiyot Community Project, which supports local Indigenous youth to gather, process, and prepare traditional Native American foods into meal boxes to give to the Wiyot community. And one of our largest projects, which is the subject of our recent $1 million grant, is the Food for Indigenous Futures project, which establishes a youth council that will drive this project and how it serves community curriculum development around reorientations of conceptions of health and wellness for our youth in high school health classes, as well as online and in-person summer camps for regional Indigenous youth. And I wanted to highlight the Indigenous Foods Festival, which is an upcoming large event. It will be held in November 2023. And this will feature Indigenous businesses, food producers, scholars in discussion, in food demonstrations, and it will be this large celebration of Indigenous food sovereignty. And I would encourage everyone in attendance to come to the Indigenous Foods Festival in 2023. So that is a brief overview of the Food Sovereignty Lab.
Thank you so much, Carly, for starting us off and grounding us with the presentation that really represents what's happening here in Humboldt and with the university, who are co-hosts. I would like to next introduce Joan Jandai. Joan Jandai is a farmer, earthen builder, seed saver, teacher, father, and community activist from the Isan region of Thailand. He is the co-founder of Pun Pun Center for Self-Reliance in Chiang Mai and Tamturikit, a social enterprise building a new agricultural model based on self-organization and community self-reliance. Joan's most recent project is Seeds for the People, which seeks to return seeds to farmers' hands and restore agricultural biodiversity through the establishment of a national network of rural seed keepers. So with that, I'd like to turn it to Joan Jandai for a short presentation. Thank you.
Hello. Hello, everyone. It's actually I'm a farmer all my life, and then I think to be a farmer is not a kind of way of living that we can survive easily, because farming always invest a lot of money, but when you sell, it's always very low price. So most of farmers cannot survive. They have to be in debt a lot. Most of farmers in my areas have to go to the city to work in the city. But to work in the city is not solution for us too, because we are become just a cheap labor in the city, because we are don't have a skill or knowledge like the city people. So how can these people survive? I think a lot about this, and at the end, I start to think about how can we survive. The solution is come back to the land and grow food for ourselves, not for sale, grow for ourselves first. And then after experiment to do that, I found that it's very easy to live on this world in this way. Then I feel like a lot of people suffer in our life because we work too much, but we work hard, but we have a very bad life. We eat very bad. We have a broken family. Everybody so busy all the time. It's interesting that we study so much, we know so much, we are so clever, but why we make our life so boring? Why we cannot make our life have more fun, more laughing? So more and more people interested about the way I'm living, the way I lead my life. So at the end, we found Pun Pun. Pun Pun is like a learning center and seed saving center. It the meaning of learning center is a place where we can learn together how to be together, because we were disconnected for a long time. So it's so hard now for people to be together. But we feel so lonely, even we live in the middle of millions of people. So we don't know how to be together. So Pan is a place where can we learn how to be together? How can we make our life easy? And in the same time, we do seed saving. So learning to make our life easy doesn't mean we need to go back to build up our roots again. Our root is to be self-reliant on the 4 basic needs. Like we need to be able to help ourselves, at least food, shelter, daily needs, and healing. It's a basic thing for every life in the world in the past. But when we develop so much, we cut our root off. We have no roots now. So our life is so hard, so complicated. So when we come and learn, we discover more and more things that can make our life easy. We can build our house easily. If we have 3 or 4 people, we can build our house in 1 or 2 weeks easily. We can make earthen house, we can make straw bale, we can make bamboo house, we can make paper house, all kind of everything around us, we can make a house. And then we learn how to grow food. Food is so easy to grow, but we have to work more than 8 hours per day to buy very bad food to eat. So I think it's very big mistake in the way we think. Why we have to work so much to eat very bad food? So when we learn how to grow ourselves easily, we can have food easily. And when we do all the daily needs by ourselves, we learn how to make soap, make shampoo, make detergent, make toothpaste, make sauce, make everything. It's so much fun and it's so cheap to do things ourselves. So this is make we feel like to live like this. We don't have a lot of money, but it's so much fun. And then people come and stay with us a lot. So now we have almost 20 people stay together as a community in Pan. But we don't want it to be bigger than this, because if it's bigger than this, it will be more job. We need to manage people. But managing people is very hard work. So if we have about 20 people, we don't need to manage people because everybody know everything. So we don't want Pan to be big, but we want to have many Pan in many areas. So that's the idea for our communities. And then in the same time, we think seed saving is the most important thing, because seed is food is life, but the seed disappear from our life a lot. That means we have no security. So the main aim of Pan community is just to do seed saving. So we grow seed. But to saving seed, it doesn't mean we need to keep in the cold room for a long time. We mean we need to save in our life. It have to be one part of our life. So we need to grow them and eat them, because the knowledge of eating everything is very important. It's like a seed. If we have seed, but we don't know how to eat them, it's useless. So some of them is toxic. If we don't know the technique how to use them, we can die from it. So we need to use it and grow it. So when it's in our life, it will not disappear. So the way we try to do seed saving is just try to grow them and eat them and share with other people. And then in the same time, to make seed alive, we need to make the seed become popular in the society. That's why we start a company we call Tham Thurukit, social enterprise company. This company is like a fair business company. So we invite farmer to buy share, consumer buy share. Now we have about 17,000 people who bought the share from us now. We have 3 restaurants in Bangkok. We have 1 farmer market in Bangkok, and we have online marketing. So this company is like we try to create a new way of business. So farmer can grow for themselves first. If they have leftover, they send to us, and then we can sell leftover of farmer to the city people. So when they grow for themselves, they have good food to eat. And then leftover is good food because they grow for themselves, because normal farmer, they use a lot of chemical for sale, but for grow for themselves, they don't use chemical. So with this technique, I think it support each other between city people and then farmer. So, and then in the same time, I think we need to have more seed developer in the country, because now before seed developer, all farmer are seed developer. But not many years ago, in like 30 years ago, we were taught that farmer cannot develop the seed. It's a job of scientists. It's a job of academic people. You need to have labs. You need to have technology. And then nobody save seed anymore. Nobody develop the seed anymore because they feel like they are not clever enough. They don't have tool. They don't have technology. And now the seeds in the hand of a few companies. So this is the biggest problem for us now. Hello?
Hello, Pijo. Yes, we can hear
Hello?
you. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. It seemed like it was cut off. Yeah. And then, so we want farmer to feel like they are the real seed developer in the world for long time. They need to bring back their skill, that confident that they can be seed developer. That's why we start another company we call Seed for People Social Enterprise Company. So we just started. And then tomorrow, this company going to have a big gathering in the northeastern of Thailand. We're collecting all tubers in the country. We want to make tuber banks here. So tomorrow, at least 100 people will come to share their labor. We call Joy Force Party. So everybody come, no host. Everybody come with their tool, their everything, just come to help. No money involved with this event. So it will be fun for tomorrow. This is what we are doing in Thailand now.
Thank you so much, Picho. It's wonderful to hear about these different stories and practices of food and seed sovereignty happening around the globe. And I'd like to continue with that. We're going to hear next from Alfie Palumbarit, who currently holds the position as National Coordinator of Farmer Scientist Group Masipag. Masipag is a farmer-led network of people's organizations, NGOs, and scientists working towards the sustainable use and management of biodiversity through farmers' control of genetic and biological resources, agricultural production, and associated knowledge. So with that, I'd like to introduce Alfie.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Oh, sorry, it's morning here at the side of the world. I think it's April 21st. Good morning also to Pijan, hi, and everyone here in the conference. So my name is Alfie Pulumbarit. So as been shared, I represent Masipag as the national coordinator, and then I'll share with you our presentation for this activity, which is entitled for a while. Can anyone see the presentation? Okay, so the title of our presentation is Practicing Hope, the Case of Farmer Empowerment in the Philippines. So I think this is the most relevant question today, no, and to each and everyone, especially for people who are paralyzed, no, with fear. And fear is basically like what Pichan has shared earlier. Um, Fear of losing livelihoods, fear of not surviving for the next day. Um, but social movements, no, like us, um, have been contributing to the flourishing of what we call hope. Hope at the present sense is usually um, communicated, no, or being understood as unfulfillable fantasies. No? Basically, strengthening the status quo, strengthening the consumption, strengthening uh, the present system. But I think for us, no, who are into the social movement and development work, see that the need to um, the need to face these fears, no, we are always banking on hope, but it's not um, um, practically a fantasy. No? So we have been banking on hope because the farmers, especially the oppressed sectors of the society, have been making pathways through their agencies. So for in the Philippines, basically farmers have been paralyzed, no, and are being affected by the um, proliferation of the Green Revolution, especially in the 1960s. Wherein, it's not ano, sorry, I'm going to stop share. Okay. So in the 60s, no, the Green Revolution started in the country with the intent to replace farmers' practices of agriculture with modern technologies, with the intent to increase inputs. No? But basically, the Green Revolution, wherein the Philippines is basically at the center of the implementation of the Green Revolution being espoused by the corporate agenda, led to the loss of local varieties. It increased external costs such as inputs, seeds, and fertilizers. It also increased pests and new biotypes. It means when we say new biotypes, there is a um, generation of new pests that has been rendered cannot be controlled, no, by pesticides. The increased use of fertilizers also led to acidic soils, and basically it degraded the environment. And for us in the Philippines, this has been not an option, for the farmers because of the authoritarian rule back in the 70s by the then deposed President Marcos through the Masagana 99. In 1985, when farmers have observed these impacts of the Green Revolution, they have convened scientists and NGOs, and they surmised that in 1985 that the Green Revolution led to the farmers' greater indebtedness and rural poverty. So in 1985, Bigas, when we it was a conference termed as Bigas, or basically Rice Conference, where Masipag was born. No? So basically, farmers who have been facing fears, no, with regards to livelihoods and even to their security, have come together to make new pathways, no, by basically investing on farmer empowerment. So when we say farmer empowerment, it's not a thing that is floating in the air. But when we say farmer empowerment, it's farmers are having regaining their control on their seeds, technology, and resources. And this enables them to chart their own destiny. They also strengthen their leadership through their organizations. And farmers who have been relegated as receivers, passive receivers of technology, are now building again and regaining again their knowledge and their ability to articulate their needs and pursuit of their aspirations. So, masipag, it's an acronym which means magsasaka at scientifico para sa pag-unlad ng agrikultura, or in English, it's a Farmer-Scientist Partnership for Development. It's a network of small-scale farmers, NGOs, and scientists from the Philippines. Masipag is also a word meaning industrious, in Filipino. So it also makes sense, from the founders of Masipag, that by naming the organization as industrious, that because farmers here are saying are being pegged as lazy, so we the founders named Masipag as a as a means of banking again or gaining again the hope that the farmers can regain again their resources. The farmers can regain the knowledge that was lost, and they could chart their own destinies as well. So for the more than 37 years that Masipag has been practicing its mission to uplift the lives of small-scale farmers, I'm just going to share with you the outcomes of farmer-led food and agricultural systems. So from corporate-led agenda and the capture of food systems in the Philippines, the power shift from corporations are now being recaptured or regained again by the farmers. So from 5 farmer organizations in 1986, Masipag is now has in its membership around 512 people's organization involving more than 30,000 farmers in 49 provinces in the Philippines. Masipag not only tend to collect seeds and share them, but they also innovated their practices, basically regaining and the practice of rice breeding. So Masipag has now 9 farmer rice breeders, and we are hoping that it will increase in the coming years. And Masipag is also joined technically by more than 16 scientists and organizationally by more than 38 NGOs. The Masipag organization is being formed by people's organizations. So we tend to form organizations, or if there are organizations that would like to be members, then they could apply for Masipag. And through this, we are strengthening collective leadership, which was affected during the Green Revolution, wherein the technologies and the practices are more on the practice individually. And through people's organizations, all of the programs of Masipag are being implemented, and it is an effective coordinating mechanism. Also serves as a multiplier effect with regards to the knowledges and resources that is being generated. Through people's organizations, observations, innovations are consolidated, and there's mutual support given the times of disaster, and it is also a great equalizer. Masipag, at present, from 1985, has collected and maintained more than 2,132 rice varieties. Previously, before the Green Revolution, the Philippines is home to more than 4,000 traditional and heirloom varieties, which was replaced by high-yielding and inbred varieties. And now we are trying to regain those seeds. And from the 2,132 seeds that Masipag has been maintaining, we were able to collect 747 traditional rice varieties, more than 1,000 Masipag rice, which is a product of farmer breeding here in our Baca farm, And our rice breeders have been continuously doing rice breeding and resulted to 180 farmer bred rice. Oops, sorry. Now, this collection is not being like what Pijan has said, no, it's not sitting or being placed inside cold refrigerators. These are being shared freely without cost to farmers. And each people organization who are interested to collect, conserve these varieties and improve in these varieties are given 50 varieties in selection per people's organization, and they're doing it in a trial farm strategy. So when we say trial farm strategy, we are basically not trying to do prescriptions, no, like what ERI and the Green Revolution has been doing, but it is the farmers who are trying to select and improve which varieties will be locally adaptable to their area. We are trying to break the practice that farmers have been passive receivers, that through trial farms and the varieties that they have been using, they're able to again observe, they're able to convene, they're able to do more innovations because the trial farms are the living laboratory, a laboratory without walls. So through the trial farms, organizations are convening, trying to select which is the most adaptable to their area. And through this, it also ensures that the organization is being strengthened and local food security and seed security is being done. Apart from trial farms, we encourage farmers to do seed sharing either in meetings or in during discussions, and we are doing and encouraging them to do that through seed exchanges. And it is very instrumental, not only in improving and diversifying the number of seeds that are needed by the farmers, but it's also being seen as a solution, no? Or as an approach, especially in the impacts of the changing climate. If we just like to share with you, the Philippines is, I think, is the #1 country being affected by climate change. We eat typhoons, no, for breakfast. We have more than 20 typhoons every year. But unfortunately, these typhoons are being, in the intensity, no, is being felt. We now have category 5 typhoons, no? But through farmers' resiliency and advocacy and through seed exchange, we were able to at least contribute for farmers to be able to shorten their recovery and to also adapt and mitigate the effects of climate change. I would also just like to share with you, apart from the collection and seed breeding that farmers are being doing, Masipag has also been known for the rice breeding program that it has been initiated during the 80s. And usually farmers are being relegated, even Masipag, as traditionalist farmers. But basically, what Masipag has been doing is to again regain the knowledge that it has been doing and to improve from them. Prior to Masipag, it is the scientists from formal institutions that are doing breeding processes through formal practices of breeding. But through Masipag, they were saying that the farmers in Masipag are just doing selection. But Masipag has been doing rice breeding, and it is generally unheard of. So this was beautifully captured by David Prosard, wherein the farmers are using the weapons of the strong to their advantage. And we have been doing Masipag farmer rice breeding as an approach to local food security and seed security, and again recapturing the knowledge that was lost during the Green Revolution. The seed systems that we have been implementing is a network, a tapestry of seed flow, of seeds. There is no central role with regards to the collection and conservation of seeds, because all of the farmers and all of the networks are doing this simultaneously. So if you have the Erie as the center, no, in the Green Revolution program, in Masipag, it's the periphery, no? The farmers are at the center of the conservation program and the conservation and collection of seeds. And these active sharing, exchange, improvement through breeding and observation are being practiced, no, in the network, which basically ensures that there's an autonomous farmer's seed being created that is separates, no, the seed system of Masipag from the prevailing conventional seed systems, wherein it is the industries and the formal institutions that are basically prescribing what seeds that are being used by the community. So it is the farmers who are deciding which and what to plant. So you have this network of farmer scientist NGO partnership, you have farmer-led breeding, you have community seed banks, all are working together, circulating and basically improving, no, the lives and livelihoods of our farmers. And the outcomes is that, for example, the farmer bred lines identified are being used by farmers all over the country. And farmer breeders are very happy, no, that their seeds that they have bred are being used widely and are adapting, no, and are performing well in different conditions. And as been shared earlier, trial farms also serve as a ground for training and inspiring second liners. So apart from farmers who have been doing rice breeding and trial farm, it is also an advocacy tool, no, to ensure that there is a continuous generation of new farmers, no, that will be taking up food production. Through the trial farm strategy and the seed system that Masipag has been employing, Masipag farmers are able to identify climate change resilient seeds, no, that are adaptable to the different conditions of the country. So in this map, we are able, or the Masipag farmers are able to identify 18 drought resilient varieties, 12 flood tolerant varieties, 20 saltwater tolerant, because the Philippines is an archipelago, and because of the climate change, there is some saltwater intrusion, and 24 varieties that are resilient to pests and diseases. All of these are happening at the same time, and it is being determined by the farmers as well. And because farmers are able to regain their resources, their seeds and knowledge, it also enables them to further assert their rights. So 2 days ago, the Supreme Court has issued a writ of kalikasan versus golden rice and eggplant, or BT eggplant, a GM product that is posed for commercialization in the country, and Masipag has been leading the petition. No? The writ of kalikasan, or writ of nature, is a special process to hasten, no, or speed up environmental cases. So we are hoping, no, that if you could also join us in this campaign to basically popularize and make the campaign more known to everyone, because especially rice, no, it's a staple rice, a staple food of the Asian people. We always joke, no, that if a meal is without rice, it's called snacks, no? Is it right, Pijan? So we eat rice morning, lunch, and dinner, no? So it's very central, no, to our lives and livelihood, and it is being threatened by the introduction of golden rice and BT eggplant, no? And we already took the case to the court, and hopefully there will be a meaningful and positive result to this. So Masipag, no, it's not only banking on the fantasies that there will be a better life, no, for farmers in the future, but it is a hard, we need to do, it's not easy, no? We have to be committed to do hard work to relearn, no, the collective culture, no, that was lost during the Green Revolution. And it's through practicing these farmer-led systems that we are basically, and we hope, no, and I think all of us in the social movement are practicing hope, no. And these farmer-led, farmer-driven, bottom-up approaches given farmers a central role, no, in defining the priorities and directions of agricultural development and lay the foundation for their responses to the challenges. So maybe I could end the discussion, no, that all of us are contributing, no, for us to have a meaningful and a livable future. Hope is an ongoing project. It's a journey. It is not basically an absence of fear, but we are creating, no, new pathways, and we are generating agencies and pathways in order to generate hope. And it is an effort of will and political strategy and an importance that in imagining and realizing new futures. So with that, maraming salamat po. Thank you very much for this space, no, that we are able to share Masipag's work and advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alfie, for that very wonderful presentation, really outlining the impacts of the Green Revolution, the way that Green Revolution enabled these capitalist mechanisms to really take control of seeds, which is, you know, controlling food, which controls life. And so it's really powerful to see the work that Masipag is doing in resistance to that. We had a presenter, Alejandro Argumendo, who was very excited to join our panel discussion today. However, he is currently conducting field work in the Ecuadorian Amazon with unanticipated gaps in internet connectivity. I'm going to share a brief introduction, and then I'm going to share a video that he has submitted detailing some of his work with the potato park, which you'll hear more about. So Alejandro Argumendo is the Director of Programs and Andes Amazon Lead for the Swift Foundation. After working with the Cultural Survival Canada to support Indigenous peoples' rights-based initiatives, Argumendo returned to the Andean region to support indigenous food systems in Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia. Argumendo recently assisted the development of Potato Park in Cusco, Peru, which is a celebrated example of how an indigenous food neighborhood can achieve food sovereignty while fostering inclusive livelihood options, maintaining the integrity of local ecosystems, and enhancing the rights to land, water, seeds, knowledge, and food-producing habitats. So the Potato Park, which is located in the Quechua lands in the Andes Mountains of Peru, is an initiative demonstrating the potential of community action, advocacy, and partnership around food-related biocultural diversity. More than 1,300 cultivated and wild varieties of potatoes are conserved by farmers in and around their fields in the park. This diversity is conserved and supported locally through a community seed bank, seed multiplication center, and greenhouse facilities. Interestingly, these true seeds have been deposited by the communities of the park in the Svalbard Global Seed Vault as an additional safety backup. This was the first seed deposit made directly by indigenous communities in the Svalbard Seed Vault. So today we're sharing a video called Uiwe, which means the seed, that narrates the journey the Potato Park community members took to bring their seeds to the Svalbard seed vault. This story highlights the cultural and spiritual values of Indigenous Quechua food systems and brings into consideration the possibilities and contradictions of sovereign place-based farmer-led seed-keeping practices on the one hand, and non-sovereign institutional seed conservation practices on the other. And I think after hearing from Picho and Alfie, it's really interesting to bring this video in conversation and consider the ways that these two practices are being held, one with our, Indigenous relatives living with our seeds, and the other in this kind of additional safeguarded backup, which is considerably more institutional and a little bit perhaps less alive in a way. But I'm delighted to share this video with you. It's very interesting, and I'm very excited to talk about it during our discussion as well.
Llaqtachaymantas wiltaramusqani, wasichaymantas puririramuni. Pachamamaman paguta ruwaspa, apukunaman nuqamañamusaq. Kay karu llaqtapi qantiyanakipaq, kay karu llaqtapi qantiyanakipaq. Imanispataq kutirapusaqri, hayk'anispataq kutirapusaqri. Kay karu llaqtaman papachayta saqi, kay karu llaqtaman papachay pasampun. Imanispataq kutirapusaqri, hayk'anispataq kutirapusaqri. Kay karu llaqtaman papachay pasampun. Pachamamaman paguta ruwaspa, apukunaman nuqamañamusaq. Kay karu llaqtapi qantiyanakipaq, Imanispataq kutirapusaq,
El Parque de la Papa es una asociación de 5 comunidades indígenas o andinas. Es una área de conservación de agrobiodiversidad de papas nativas, pues también ahí se está conservándose todo nuestro conocimiento tradicional y todas nuestras culturas vivas, y también llamado como un patrimonio biocultural e indígena. Es un paisaje cultural, ¿no?
¿Por qué un parque de la papa? No es solamente mantener una gran diversidad genética, pero también la historia de nuestro pueblo. Esta coevolución entre los quechuas y la papa nativa hace posible que nuevas expresiones genéticas puedan surgir y que estas otras que existen puedan seguir adaptándose a estos cambios que en los Andes se ven y que son dramáticos. El cambio climático no es un fenómeno simple, se necesita ver cómo se puede crear la alimentación del futuro. Pensamos hacer este viaje a Svalbard, donde una comisión del Parque de la Papa llevará las semillas, porque esto no se puede responder solos.
Pachamunasqay saqiya pushani.
Preserve the seeds here is that we want them to serve the farmers in the future. Get back to it, to face the challenge that we have in the future. For FAO, this is what matters. Bring farmers and scientists together to preserve biodiversity for future generations, use them in their benefit.
It's 120 meters now from the entrance and until we enter the mountain. Then we go through a tunnel which is also outside the mountain, and then we enter the mountain and enter a door and come into where it's -6 degrees all year around because of the permafrost. So let's go.
most important that is having the farmers here bringing potato. Potato is one of the 5 big crops in the world that feed around 75–80% of the population nowadays. In situ preservation, what you do, the new varieties that you have been growing, up to 5,000. This is really part of the challenge that we have for the future, have those varieties available to be used in the future. To use those genes for bring resistance to other possible varieties. We thank you.
I've been talking to my colleagues here, and we have very strong and mixed emotions. This for us is a true spiritual journey. The potato's history goes back to the beginning of time for us. All our culture have evolved or co-evolved with the potato. We are potato people. We have it when we are born, when we get married, when we get baptized, and they grow very close to us, that they are part of the family. And we've been talking about how this part of us, this family of us, is going to stay here. And there are our mixed emotions, because we're not just living genes or tribes, but also a family.
Mamakocha kay llaqtapi sumaqta kan qawarinki kay tukuy muhukunata qipawiñaykunaq mikhunanpaq kay montaña kasqa sumaq riq'imama qanya sumaqta cuidanki waqaychanki kay muhunchiskunata Perú suyupi awsangati Itusiray hatun nuqaykuq kanki yanapaqni apuyku qanya munayta kayta uywanki qhawarimunki kunanqa makiykiman hap'ichiykiku kay mukhuykuta nuqaykupaq mihunaykupaq qhipa wawakunaq mihunanpaq hina qhipanmantaq munduntin runakunaman mihuchinaykipaq chayrayku nuqayku kayta apariykiku kaywan tukurikamunkiku tukuy sunquykuman.
Llaqtachallaymantas nuqa hamurani wasichallaymantas nuqa hamurani Llaqtachallayqa ispanqa llaqtami
Yes, so Thank you, everyone, for joining us through the screening of that film. I think it really gives us, asks us to think about what we mean when we say food and seed sovereignty and how these different things are being practiced, and where they engage with the capitalist, colonial, and industrial systems that have, led to a food and seed regime that does not necessarily value the life or relations of foods and the peoples that sustain each other. And so with that, I'd like to bring us into conversation with the panelists. And I think I would actually like to continue that conversation with Alfie first and ask, to what extent do you feel, Alfie, your work is engaging with or relies upon or departs from or really seeks to dismantle the dominant capitalist and colonial food and seed economies and systems that are circulating our seeds and foods at present?
Oh yeah. Basically, what we are like what has been shared earlier. We are investing much on ensuring that farmers are empowered, and when we say empowerment, is that they will be able to do food production without their rights being trampled upon by the corporate agenda. And we try to ensure that spaces are being created for these activities, and sharing between farmers are being practiced. From the top-down approach that is being implemented in the current conventional and corporate-driven food systems, we rely very much on the farmer-to-farmer mode of transfer, not only with seeds but with knowledge. We ensure that there is democracy through the bottom-up approach, because we feel that there's no lack of technologies to address the current problems on food systems. But what we do have is a lack of democracy. Farmers are always relegated at the sideline. And through Masipag, we try to address those. We also try to do a paradigm shift from not only with the farmers, because they have been the culture has inculcated through them through the Green Revolution, made them timid. And at the same time, we're also trying to do a paradigm shift with the scientists as well. There is intellectual confusion with regards to our scientists, because they are molded in the conventional and Green Revolution programs. And the farmers has been made passive in this implementation, which is why we're trying to create spaces wherein both sectors that are very relevant in the creation of a people-centered food system would have a meaningful discussion and chart their ways. We also, through farmer empowerment, farmers are more capable to articulate their needs and aspirations. And by creating these spaces, they are able to also assert their rights. And I think that's one of the central thing that Masipag has been doing, because usually Masipag is known for the seeds, but seeds and the improvement would not be there if it is not for the farmers who are taking the lead into changing and controlling and leading the food systems.
Thank you, Alfie. Yes, as you were talking, I was thinking about the way that Masipag is creating these circulations of knowledge and power relations amongst their farmers. And I'd like to bring Carly and Picho into that conversation and ask, within our food and seed sovereignty movements now, there are really diverse approaches to the circulation, the movement of knowledges, of practices, of plants and seeds and materials. And I'm curious, Carly and Picho, in your current work and projects, how are you thinking about circulation and movement in terms of, or in relation to sovereignty or control of materials and seeds? Carly, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. So I think it's most appropriate if I speak to this from the place that the Food Sovereignty Lab is nested within an institution. And the way we support our communities and Indigenous sovereignty, that is our prevailing mission, our prevailing goal. But also the work we do is rooted in this institution, and institutions are inherently colonial structures. So this is very difficult to navigate, and it requires us to create structures and safeguards for the communities we want to serve and work with to ensure that this institution does not continue to misappropriate, steal knowledges from these communities. And that includes seeds, that includes material, that includes plant relatives, knowledges, practices. So for context for our visitors that are not from this place, Cal Poly Humboldt has recently become a polytechnic institution, and in their mission statement, in their vision, they say that they want to partner with Indigenous communities to, I'm quoting directly, to address the legacy of colonialism and create space nurturing of traditional ecological knowledges, pedagogies, and curricula responsive to their identified needs. And it's been made very clear throughout this polytechnic implementation process that the university wishes to use TEK. I think there is a prevailing sentiment from our community that they want to use TEK without implementing these safeguards to work with TEK, respecting it as a plurality of knowledges rooted in community, that is rooted in the sovereignty of community. So in order to work with Indigenous science, Indigenous knowledges, these initiatives need to be forefronted by Indigenous communities and Indigenous peoples. And we will always defer to and uplift the sovereignty of these communities regarding the circulation and exchange of knowledges. So not to take too much time on this, but I think at the Food Sovereignty Lab, we're actively working to address this question because we are in this balance of working within an institution, but also wanting to serve our community and serve for the resurgence and enactment of traditional knowledges, to work to bring our seed and plant relatives back to health in our landscapes. So this will actually be the subject of my graduate work, is a program called Place-Based Learning Practices, where we're taking case studies around ethnobotanical knowledges and approaching our regional Indigenous communities to say, how can we create frameworks within the institution that address how to work with Indigenous science and knowledges appropriately so that sovereignty is respected? And this has a lot of implications in data sovereignty and access to information for the public versus for tribal community. In terms of data sovereignty, where this information should be housed, right? This brings me back to the video of Oiwe of housing information, housing relatives in a colonial institution. And I think a lot of our communities feel very apprehensive about that. So working within an institution, all information, all of our research is in part owned by the institution. So how to tease out protocols and practices so that we can work with community and not have that data misappropriated or stolen and owned by a university. So these are all questions I think as an institute, we are actively working to navigate and answer so that we can do this work in a good way.
Thank you so much for that response, Carly. Yeah, who is holding knowledge is a very important question. And Picho, I'd like you to maybe respond. Maybe you could talk about Seeds for the People a little bit and thinking through who is holding these practices and these seeds, and maybe how that relates to some of the work that's going on with that particular project, and how those seeds are moving amongst the farmers.
Yeah, we know that now the seeds is in the hand of a few group of company, and then it causes a lot of problem for people, and then it's before people did not aware that it's a problem. They think it's convenient, it's good because the company developed good seed for you. But actually now they start to know that most of the seed from company is hybrid seed. You cannot save seed anymore. And then the price rising up very fast. So this is something that people start to be aware. It's easy for us now to talk, to communicate with people that this is the biggest crisis. When we have no seed in our hand, that means we have no freedom, no happiness. So seed for people is like, we start to do a lot of training for people to start collecting the indigenous seeds in their area. And then the next step is just we need to develop them, to propagate them, and develop them to have a new breeding, new varieties. So I think farmers, many of them, they did this thing before already, but not many people do it because they think it's a kind of work that we cannot do it well because we are not scientists, we don't have technology. But now when we start to do a lot of training to tell them that they are the best person who can be seed developer, who can be the good breeder without technology, they can do it. Without budget, they can do it. And now it seems like it's very exciting for people all over. Like when we have advertised for the workshop, we need only 50 people. Only one day we have more than 100 people apply for it. Even we close it, another 100 people contact us. So that means people start to be aware about what happened with our food now. So I think we did not try to change the policy. We did not try to work with the policy, the big policy. But the main thing is we want to come back to ourselves. How can we change ourselves to be self-reliant, to not rely on the big system so much? If we come back here, whatever they did, it will not impact us much when we can do together. They cannot do things to us much. So this is what we think. We can be free. We can be independent on our own food.
Thank you, Picho. Yes, it's amazing to hear that there's so much interest in from farmers around Thailand to engage with seed keeping and seed breeding, and that kind of makes me think about the way that Rowan White, who unfortunately could not be with us today, often reminds us that food and seeds are kin, they're relatives, and they're their own sovereign beings. And so I'm thinking, you know, as Picho, you're talking about farmers coming in and creating new varieties and trainings that are circulating knowledge to help circulate, you know, a diversity of seeds. You know, we are in a state of dramatic climate change and great ecological shifting, and we need that diversity to build resiliency. And I'm curious, and maybe I'll open this up for everyone, how we can support the agency and the intelligence of food and seeds as co-conspirators in collaborative world making as we move through these ecological shifts. And maybe, Carly, I was thinking about your introduction and how you were talking about peppers and corn as relatives. So maybe if you'd like to start us off with this question.
I would love to. And I will again ground it in my community as a Taino person, I'm working in so-called Northern California. I'm very far away from where my community is, which is in Cuba. And I do think of our seeds, our Cuban Taino seeds, as really adaptable. So historically, and I would say still, we are a boat people. So we have places of belonging, we have bojios, but we also traveled immensely around the Bawa, the Caribbean Sea. We traveled and we traded seeds, and we also carried seeds with us. And as a result of this trade, we have seeds that are very resilient to different climes and ecosystems, and they can be planted in a variety of places and thrive. And I think it's because these seeds have the genetic memory of adaptation to being able to grow and thrive in so many different places. And in our communities, we acknowledge our seeds as very strong with these adaptive qualities. And I know it is larger than this, but I think it does come down to trusting the seeds to know place where they belong and lands as they have been growing in since time immemorial. And more than anything, giving them the opportunity to grow. As was said, who said this? I believe it was in the video. Seeds have been in coevolution with people since time immemorial, and the varieties that can survive due to climate change can make themselves known when they are in relationship and being grown actively. And new genetic variations can arise based on this historical strength. So bringing it back to here in so-called Northern California, I think about opportunities for the resurgence of indigenous foods are really framed around land return. In California, and I'm not a California historian, indigenous scholar in that way, but in California, settler colonialism hit really hard. And I think about Wiyot Aboriginal territory where we are right now. The Wiyot tribal community hold less than 1% of their Aboriginal territories. So the opportunity to engage with traditional foods very much relies on land sovereignty and the ability to engage in landscape care and the reenactment of traditional ecological knowledges around our relatives to return these landscapes to health also returns climate resilience and climate adaptability to the landscape as a whole, but also to the relatives within that system. And along with that, that brings indigenous management and relationship upon which these seeds rely. I'll end there because I want to hear from Alfie and Piedon.
Yeah, thank you for that, Carly. Alfie or Pijo, do you have anything you would like to add? Or in response, perhaps, to Carly's answer?
Please go ahead, Pijo.
I think the main thing now is it's hard to make people understand what happened with the seed, what happened, because we were disconnected completely about food that we eat. So when we start to do this at the beginning, it's very hard. That's why we feel like we need to bring it to our life as much as we can to make people know that it's something that close to our life more. And then when people know that, they will do it. When more and more people start to propagate them, develop them different way, that's mean there's more development, there's more experiment, there's more planting. That is the way to make the seed evolve itself. So if we let only a few group of people do it, that's the dangerous thing, because there are less experiment, less development. We need more and more and more people to do it. The more people grow, there are more variety will be planted, so they have more chance to develop, to evolve itself, to the climate change, to everything. So I think they will be stronger and better in the future with the climate change, with everything. So the main thing now is how can we make people understand this thing and help each other to grow more, develop more. That is the thing that we think about now. That's why we want to make train people to be seed developer all everywhere. So there will be tons of people experiment every part of the world, of the country, or something like that.
Thank you, Pijo. Alfie, if you would like to add anything, I think I'm realizing that we are already over time. So Alfie, if there's anything that you would like to add on to that, I think that we're going to conclude with Alfie's comments, and we'll just do a quick wrap up after that. So Alfie.
Yeah, I think the inputs given by Carly and John are I'm just going to add just a little bit. I think for farmers, to be able for them to strengthen their agency, I agree very much that there should be a strengthening, and regaining again of these resources. Like for example, land is a very much a problem here in the Philippines. The Philippines is a country of haciendas. I think it's coming way back during the Spanish period, and it is being dominated by local landlordism. And it is very much difficult for farmers to do these approaches when they do not have access to these resources such as land, seeds, water, and everything for them to produce food. And I think that's one of the things that we have to focus on, to collectively campaign for the return of these resources, so that the farmers will be able to do their primary role of producing food. With regards to climate change adaptation, I think the initiatives of farmers are already there. We term it as no regrets adaptation. Like for example, in sustainable agriculture, even if you have this impacted or not by catastrophic events, farmers will still be able to produce food, perhaps a little bit during catastrophes, but through farmer-centered food systems, they're still able to secure food for their families. And I think this is one of the spaces that we need to strengthen, like this conference, to basically address what P. John has been sharing. There are both two ways, I guess. First is strengthening our practical work, because our practical work is our best advocacy. A meter of land that is being freed from corporate seeds, from corporate systems, is a meter of land freed and recaptured again by farmers through our initiatives and through our practical work. But then again, you have these immense pressures, external challenges like free trade agreements, green revolution, and everything, land use conversions, and we should work in helping the farmers realize their own strength, and these spaces contribute for them to be able to know and reflect on their own strengths, and they will be able to act on these internal and external challenges as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our wonderful panelists for joining today, to our amazing supportive tech team, and to everyone in the audience for tuning in and learning and thinking with us. So we are going to wrap it up for this Food and Seed Sovereignty panel. Again, much thanks all around.